The distress signal from Eden's Rest crackled through the void, a faint echo of a once thriving colony now reduced to ash. The message was brief but haunting. "This is Governor Elena Reyes of Eden's Rest. We are under attack. The Zarathians, they're killing everyone. Please, if anyone can hear this, help us." The transmission cut off abruptly, leaving only static. On Earth, the room fell silent as the weight of the words sank in. Eden's Rest, a beacon of human achievement on the edge of explored space, was gone. The colony had been a symbol of hope, a place where humanity had dared to dream of a future among the stars. Now it was a graveyard. The Zarathians had come without warning, their sleek, black warships descending like shadows over colony. Their motives were unclear, but their methods were brutal. Plasma fire rained down, reducing buildings to molten slag. The colony's defenses, though valiant, were no match for the overwhelming firepower of the invaders. Families were torn apart in the chaos, children crying for parents who would never answer. Governor Reyes had tried to rally her people, but even her courage couldn't stem the tide of destruction. In her final moments, she had managed to send a distress signal, a last act of defiance against the darkness. On Earth, the news spread like wildfire. The destruction of Eden's Rest was not just an attack on a colony. It was an attack on humanity itself. The outrage was palpable, a collective roar of anger and grief that echoed across the planet. Leaders from every nation convened in an emergency session, their usual rivalries forgotten in the face of this existential threat. The decision was unanimous. The Zarathians would pay for what they had done. Earth would not stand idly by while its people were slaughtered. The call to arms went out, and humanity began to prepare for war. Admiral Jansen stood on the bridge of the EFS Resolute, his eyes fixed on the holographic display of the fleet assembling around him. 700,000 warships, each one a testament to humanity's ingenuity and determination. The fleet was a diverse array of vessels, from towering dreadnoughts bristling with weapons to sleek fighters designed for precision strikes. Every ship bore the scars of hasty construction, a reminder of the urgency of their mission. The crew, too, reflected the unity of humanity. Men and women from every corner of Earth stood shoulder to shoulder, their differences set aside in the face of a common enemy. The Zarathians, meanwhile, remained confident in their superiority. They had crushed countless species beneath their heel, and they saw no reason to fear humanity. Their arrogance was their greatest weakness, blinding them to the resolve of a species pushed to the brink. They dismissed the reports of Earth's mobilization as the desperate flailing of a primitive race. They would soon learn the cost of underestimating humanity. As the fleet prepared to depart, Admiral Jansen addressed his crew. "Today, we set out on a mission of vengeance, but also of justice. The Zarathians thought they could destroy us without consequence. They thought we would cower in fear. They were wrong. We are humanity, and we do not forget. We do not forgive. For Eden's Rest, for every life they took, we will make them pay." The cheers that followed were deafening, a roar of defiance that echoed through the fleet. The journey to Zarathian space was long, but the crew's resolve never wavered. They trained relentlessly, honing their skills and preparing for the battles to come. The memory of Eden's Rest burned in their hearts, a constant reminder of why they fought. As the fleet entered hyperspace, the mood was somber but determined. They knew the road ahead would be fraught with danger, but they also knew they had no choice. The Zarathians had awakened a sleeping giant, and now they would face the consequences. The first encounter with the enemy came sooner than expected. A Zarathian patrol, confident in their superiority, engaged the fleet without hesitation. The battle was swift and brutal. Humanity's superior tactics and technology quickly overwhelmed the enemy, their ships reduced to smoldering wrecks. The victory was a small one, but it was a start. For the first time since the destruction of Eden's Rest, the crew felt a glimmer of hope. They had struck back, and they would do so again. But the Zarathians were not so easily defeated. They responded with a massive counterattack, their fleet dwarfing anything humanity had ever faced. The battle that followed was a maelstrom of fire and destruction, ships exploding in brilliant flashes of light as the two forces clashed. The human fleet fought valiantly, but the sheer numbers of the enemy began to take their toll. For a moment, it seemed as though the tide might turn against them. Then, Admiral Jansen revealed his secret weapon, a new type of weapon designed by Earth's brightest minds, unleashed a devastating wave of energy that tore through the Zorathian fleet. The enemy ships, caught off guard, were ripped apart in moments. The tide of the battle shifted, and the Zorathians were forced to retreat. The victory was hard-won, but it was decisive. Humanity had proven that they were a force to be reckoned with. As the fleet pressed on toward the Zorathian homeworld, the mood was one of grim determination. They knew the final battle would be the hardest, but they also knew they could not stop. The memory of Eden's rest drove them forward, a burning need for justice that could not be extinguished. The Zorathians had thought they could destroy humanity without consequence. They were about to learn just how wrong they were. The Zorathian High Command convened in their citadel, a towering monolith of black stone that loomed over their capital city. The air was thick with arrogance, the leaders of the Empire lounging in their thrones as they discussed the latest reports from the front lines. The destruction of Eden's rest had been a triumph, a demonstration of their power that would surely cow the humans into submission. They laughed at the idea of Earth's retaliation, dismissing it as the desperate posturing of a primitive species. "Let them come," sneered General Karoth, his voice dripping with contempt. "We will crush them like the insects they are." But beneath the bravado, there was a flicker of unease. The reports of Earth's mobilization were growing harder to ignore. 700,000 warships, an armada unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen, was being assembled with terrifying speed. The Zorathians had never faced an enemy capable of such unity and determination. Still, they clung to their belief in their own superiority, confident that their technology and numbers would prevail. They did not yet understand the depth of humanity's resolve. On Earth, the preparations for war were nearing completion. Factories worked around the clock, churning out ships, weapons, and supplies at an unprecedented rate. The planet's entire economy had been redirected toward the war effort, every resource devoted to the single goal of vengeance. The people of Earth, united in their grief and anger, threw themselves into the task with a fervor that bordered on obsession. Volunteers flooded recruitment centers, eager to join the fight. Scientists and engineers worked tirelessly, developing new technologies and strategies to give humanity an edge in the coming conflict. Admiral Jansen stood at the heart of it all, a steady hand guiding the massive undertaking. He knew the stakes better than anyone. The destruction of Eden's rest was not just an attack on a colony. It was an attack on everything humanity stood for. If they failed now, if they allowed the Zorathians to go unpunished, it would be a betrayal of every life lost. He pored over the reports, studying every detail of the enemy's tactics and technology. He knew they would need every advantage they could get. The fleet was a marvel of human ingenuity, a testament to what could be achieved when a species worked together. The ships ranged from massive dreadnoughts, bristling with weapons and armor, to agile fighters designed for hit-and-run tactics. Each vessel was a masterpiece of engineering, built to withstand the rigors of interstellar warfare. The crews were equally impressive, men and women from every corner of Earth, united by a common purpose. They trained relentlessly, honing their skills and preparing for the battles to come. The memory of Eden's rest burned in their hearts, a constant reminder of why they fought. As the fleet prepared to depart, the mood was a mixture of anticipation and dread. The journey to Zorathian space would be long and fraught with danger, but there was no turning back. The crew knew what was at stake, and they were ready to face whatever lay ahead. Families gathered to say their goodbyes, the air thick with unspoken fears and hopes. Admiral Jansen addressed the fleet one last time, his voice steady and resolute. "We go not just for vengeance, but for justice, for Eden's rest, for humanity. Let the galaxy remember this day, for we will show them what it means to cross us." The fleet entered hyperspace, a vast armada disappearing into the void. The journey was tense, the crew on edge as they prepared for the battles to come. They knew the Zorathians would not go down without a fight, but they also knew they had no choice. The memory of Eden's rest drove them forward, a burning need for justice that could not be extinguished. The first encounter with the enemy came sooner than expected. A Zorathian patrol, confident in their superiority, engaged the fleet without hesitation. The battle was swift and brutal. Humanity's superior tactics and technology quickly overwhelmed the enemy, their ships reduced to smoldering wrecks. The victory was a small one, but it was a start. For the first time since the destruction of Eden's Rest, the crew felt a glimmer of hope. They had struck back, and they would do so again. But the Zorathians were not so easily defeated. They responded with a massive counterattack, their fleet dwarfing anything humanity had ever faced. The battle that followed was a maelstrom of fire and destruction, ships exploding in brilliant flashes of light as the two forces clashed. The human fleet fought valiantly, but the sheer numbers of the enemy began to take their toll. For a moment, it seemed as though the tide might turn against them. Then, Admiral Jansen revealed his secret weapon, a new type of weapon, designed by Earth's brightest minds, unleashed a devastating wave of energy that tore through the Zorathian fleet. The enemy's ships, caught off guard, were ripped apart in moments. The tide of the battle shifted, and the Zorathians were forced to retreat. The victory was hard-won, but it was decisive. Humanity had proven that they were a force to be reckoned with. As the fleet pressed on toward the Zorathian homeworld, the mood was one of grim determination. They knew the final battle would be the hardest, but they also knew they could not stop. The memory of Eden's Rest drove them forward, a burning need for justice that could not be extinguished. The Zorathians had thought they could destroy humanity without consequence. They were about to learn just how wrong they were. The Zorathian homeworld loomed in the distance, a dark orb surrounded by a fleet of warships that seemed to stretch endlessly into the void. The sight was daunting, but the human fleet did not falter. They had come too far, sacrificed too much, to turn back now. Admiral Jansen stood on the bridge of the EFS Resolute, his eyes fixed on the holographic display of the enemy's defenses. He knew the battle ahead would be the hardest yet, but he also knew they had no choice. The memory of Eden's Rest burned in his mind, a constant reminder of why they fought. The Zorathians, for all their arrogance, were not unprepared. They had fortified their homeworld with layers of defenses, from orbital platforms bristling with weapons to swarms of fighters ready to intercept any attack. Their confidence was shaken by the recent defeats, but they still believed in their superiority. They had ruled the galaxy for centuries, crushing any who dared to oppose them. They could not imagine that a species as young and divided as humanity could pose a real threat. They were about to be proven wrong. The battle began with a deafening roar as the human fleet surged forward, their weapons blazing. The Zorathians responded in kind, their ships unleashing a torrent of plasma fire that lit up the void. The two forces clashed in a maelstrom of destruction, ships exploding in brilliant flashes of light as they tore each other apart. The human fleet fought with ferocity that stunned the Zorathians, their superior tactics and technology giving them an edge. But the enemy's numbers were vast, and the cost of every victory was high. Admiral Jansen watched the battle unfold, his mind racing as he calculated their next move. He knew they could not afford to waste time or resources. Every ship, every life, was precious. He ordered the fleet to focus their fire on the Zorathian command ships, hoping to disrupt their coordination. The plan worked, the enemy's formations beginning to falter as their leaders were taken out. But the Zorathians were not so easily defeated. They regrouped quickly, their ships forming a defensive wall around their homeworld. The human fleet pressed the attack, their determination unshakable. They had come too far to be stopped now. The memory of Eden's Rest drove them forward, a burning need for justice that could not be extinguished. The Zorathians fought back with equal ferocity, their ships swarming the human fleet, like a pack of wolves. The battle raged on, neither side willing to give ground. Then, Admiral Jansen made his move. He ordered the deployment of the fleet's secret weapon, a new type of missile designed to penetrate the Zorathian shields. The missiles streaked through the void, their trajectories carefully calculated to avoid the enemy's defenses. They struck their targets with pinpoint accuracy, the Zorathian ships exploding in brilliant flashes of light. The enemy's formation began to collapse, their defenses crumbling under the relentless assault. The human fleet surged forward, their weapons blazing as they broke through the enemy's lines. The Zorathian homeworld was now within their reach, but the battle was far from over. The enemy's orbital platforms opened fire, their weapons tearing through the human ships with devastating accuracy. The cost of every kilometer gained was high, but the fleet did not falter. They had come too far to be stopped now. As the human fleet closed in on the Zorathian homeworld, the enemy's resolve began to waver. They had never faced an enemy like this, one that refused to back down no matter the cost. The Zorathian leaders, safe in their citadel, watched in horror as their fleet was torn apart. They had always believed in their own superiority, but now they were faced with the reality of their own vulnerability. They had underestimated humanity, and now they would pay the price. The human fleet reached the Zorathian homeworld, their weapons trained on the planet's surface. Admiral Jansen hesitated for a moment, the weight of what they were about to do pressing down on him. He knew the cost of this victory, the lives that had been lost to get them here, but he also knew they had no choice. The Zorathians had brought this upon themselves. He gave the order, and the fleet opened fire. The Zorathian homeworld was engulfed in flames, their cities reduced to ash as the human fleet unleashed their fury. The enemy's defenses crumbled, their ships fleeing in disarray. The battle was over, but the cost had been high. The human fleet had suffered heavy losses, but they had achieved their goal. The Zorathians had been defeated, their empire brought to its knees. As the fleet prepared to return home, the mood was one of somber reflection. They had won, but the cost had been high. The memory of Eden's Rest would forever be a reminder of what they had lost and what they had gained. The galaxy would never be the same, but humanity had proven that they were a force to be reckoned with. The Zorathians had thought they could destroy humanity without consequence. They had been wrong. The Zorathian homeworld burned, its once proud cities reduced to smoldering ruins. The human fleet hovered above the planet, their weapons silent, but their presence a stark reminder of the price of arrogance. The Zorathian Empire, which had ruled the galaxy with an iron fist for centuries, lay in ruins. Their fleet was scattered, their leaders dead or captured, and their people left to face the consequences of their actions. The victory was complete, but it came at a cost. The human fleet had suffered heavy losses, and the memory of those who had fallen weighed heavily on the survivors. Admiral Jansen stood on the bridge of the EFS Resolute, his eyes fixed on the holographic display of the planet below. He felt no joy in their victory, only a grim sense of satisfaction. The Zorathians had brought this upon themselves, but the cost had been high. He thought of Eden's Rest, of the lives that had been lost, and of the families that would never be whole again. This victory was for them, but it could never bring them back. The fleet began the process of securing the planet, their ships descending to the surface to establish a temporary government. The Zorathians, once the rulers of the galaxy, were now a broken people. Their cities were in ruins, their infrastructure destroyed, and their morale shattered. The human soldiers moved through the streets, their presence a constant reminder of the Empire's fall. The Zorathians watched in silence, their arrogance replaced by fear and uncertainty. But humanity was not without mercy. Despite the atrocities committed by the Zorathians, there were those among the human fleet who advocated for compassion. They argued that the Zorathian people were not all to blame, that many had been oppressed by their own leaders. Admiral Jansen listened to these arguments, his mind torn between the desire for justice and the need for humanity to rise above the cycle of violence. In the end, he made a decision. The Zorathians would be given a chance to rebuild, but under strict supervision. They would never again be allowed to threaten the galaxy. The fleet's engineers and scientists worked tirelessly to stabilize the planet, providing food, water, and medical supplies to the survivors. The Zorathians, though initially resistant, began to accept the help. They had no other choice. Their empire was gone, and they were now dependent on the very species they had once sought to destroy. It was a humbling experience, one that forced them to confront the consequences of their actions. As the days turned into weeks, the human fleet began to prepare for their return to Earth. The mission had been a success, but the cost had been high. The memory of those who had fallen was honored in a solemn ceremony, their names etched into the annals of history. Admiral Jansen addressed the fleet, his voice steady but filled with emotion. "We have achieved what many thought was impossible. We have brought justice to those who sought to destroy us. But we must never forget the cost of this victory. We must honor the sacrifices made and ensure that such a tragedy never happens again." The fleet began the long journey home, their ships filled with a mixture of relief and sorrow. The victory had come at a great cost, but it had also proven the strength and resilience of humanity. The galaxy would never be the same, but humanity had emerged stronger and more united than ever before. The memory of Eden's rest would forever be a reminder of what they had lost and what they had gained. As the fleet entered hyperspace, the mood was one of quiet reflection. The crew knew that their actions would be remembered for generations to come. They had faced the darkness and emerged victorious, but the cost had been high. The memory of those who had fallen would forever be a part of them, a reminder of the price of freedom and justice. The return to Earth was met with celebration, but also with a sense of solemnity. The people of Earth welcomed the fleet as heroes, but they also mourned the lives that had been lost. The victory had come at a great cost, but it had also proven the strength and resilience of humanity. The memory of Eden's rest would forever be a reminder of what they had lost and what they had gained. Admiral Jansen stood before the gathered leaders of Earth, his report complete. He spoke of the battles fought, the lives lost, and the victory achieved. He spoke of the need to remember the sacrifices made and to ensure that such a tragedy never happened again. His words were met with silence, the weight of his message sinking in. As the ceremony came to an end, Admiral Jansen looked out at the crowd, his heart heavy but filled with hope. The galaxy was a dangerous place, but humanity had proven that they could face any challenge. The memory of Eden's rest would forever be a reminder of what they had lost and what they had gained. The future was uncertain, but one thing was clear: humanity would never again be underestimated.